the last organization, which is really how we met, was through AIA and YAF. With you were the communications director at the time, which then means you more run the YAF Connection magazine. That's as far as I got, because I'm usually just a contributor on and off to the magazine. But can you let everybody know what you have been doing with YAF, what it meant to be on like the local versus national side of like AIA and YAF?
Yeah. So my exposure with AIA was actually kind of limited. So in college, I had more exposure with NOMA. I would attend conferences. I was a NOMA student. I knew of AIS. I attended some of their events, but I wasn't as plugged in. They just happened to be a much larger entity, and so I felt like they had all the all the needs that they had were kind of met. And so NOMA was something that I was like, okay, I think I want to really support and build this one up more so. So it actually gave me a little bit more opportunity in terms of my development. But when I graduated, I really wanted to get licensed, and so I tried to bang that out within 3 years. And so from 2014 to the end of 2017, I managed to finish my licensing exams and my AREs and my hours, and I just didn't know what to do with my free time after that. So I started to poke my head into the local chapter of AIA a little bit more. And I loved my experience there. I was with the Emerging Professionals Organization. And so a lot of what I was doing there was just kind of supporting for certain events and people who wanted to get prepared for the AREs. But I had already kind of finished that stage in my life. And I thought it was very valuable to support that. But I wanted to ask the question of like, okay, well, how do we support young architects now? There's this huge gap between once you're licensed and then like becoming a firm principal or FAIA.
There's a big now what? What else can I do?
Exactly.
But anyway, you started poking.
Yeah, I started poking, and it was exactly those questions, like, what are my new goals now? And so I had to start developing a plan to kind of develop myself. And essentially, I was at one of these local AIA emerging professional meetings and for Baltimore, and I had this opportunity that came up through a call from somebody who was on essentially the AIA National Young Architects Forum. And he was saying, hey, I'm currently the regional director for the Mid-Atlantic, which includes Maryland, DC, and Delaware. And my term is ending, but we need young architects, especially those who are recently licensed, but also who come from diverse backgrounds to kind of shake things up within our organization or ask new questions. We need those folks to kind of apply and consider joining this national position and advocate for young architects within your region. And I was like, okay, this seems like something interesting. Maybe I should consider it. One of the benefits of being in the Young Architects Forum was that your region kind of supported you to attend conferences and also travel to meet your other components or chapters within the region, so you get exposure to other emerging professionals. And so I was like, oh man, the benefits are too good. I can't like not say yes. Like this is already something that I wanted to do, and like if I don't commit to this now, I don't think I will ever do this again. So I jumped into it, and it was way more than I expected, but in a good way. It was just, I started to realize very quickly that AIA is, you get what you put into it. And the more I got involved, the more I wanted to put into it. And so it's very easy to realize very quickly that like there's so many opportunities, and you can be overwhelmed with the opportunities. So you just have to be very selective with your time, of course. But I did the regional director for about 2 years.
So it's a 2-year term?
2-year terms, yeah.
Okay.
So all the regional directors, well, now they're state directors because we moved from regions to states in AIA, are 2-year terms. And then what they call advisory committee or ADCOM, which is, I believe it's 5 directors, the chair, and then the vice chair. They have essentially, or excuse me, is it 5 chairs? 4 chairs. Sorry.
I won't go cross-check to make sure you're right or wrong.
No, I'm mixing up because it's like election cycles. I think there's 3 elections one year, 2 elections the other year. So but one of them is for the chair. But essentially, it's 2 years for those as well. And so the communication chair opened, and I had been working on the communications team for a year. And so I took that on, and I started working as the editor-in-chief for Connection, which is the young architect publication that is designed for us, written by us, but also definitely incorporates a lot of outside voices that are not necessarily in that young architect demographic, but we really value their thoughts. So I did that for 2 years, and man, that was some of the best times. Just kind of hearing diverse perspectives, and actually kind of facilitated part of my career jump too. Hearing about alternate career paths, writing about folks who took alternate career paths, and listening to them. It was eye-opening.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons I started this podcast, was to just help people figure out different paths, opportunities, whether it's engineering, construction, architecture, design. There's so many different paths to take. Yeah. And I don't think we talk enough about it. Or even if somebody leaves architecture, I wouldn't mind having more architects in different industries to shake up other industries. So I don't really find it a bad thing either if people even leave the industry to align with some of their own passions. But
yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do after communications director? Have you calmed down within the AIA?
Yes, actually I did. I had to. Because at one point I think I was volunteering regularly for about 4 organizations. That include being on the council or board or whatever the case was. And I was just like, I have no time for myself. So I need to pull back. I'm somebody who loves to play soccer. Somebody who likes to also just do random social events on the side. So it's like I just needed to have a balance between the volunteering, my day-to-day job, and then also my social life. And so I pulled back for actually a few years, a year and a half. But recently a new opportunity came up with one of the previous chairs of YAF. She started working with the College of Fellows and developing their quarterly newsletter. And she just recently moved up to like the editor, the lead editor for that. And she remembered my work and Connection, and we had a good working relationship in YAF. And so she's like, hey, you should check this out. And I took a look at the opportunity. I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into AI again. So I'm going to support the College of Fellows in their quarterly newsletters for
so
next year.
What goes out in the fellow newsletters?
Yeah, it's published on Issue, and it's very public, so anybody can take a look. But just like Connection, also very public. But it includes announcements for new fellows who kind of come into the fold. So celebrating them, talking a little bit about them and their achievements. But it also talks about fellow things that are happening with fellows across the nation. Like what's the great works that they're doing, projects, programs, things of that nature. Not too much unlike Connection in the sense that like this one's geared a little bit more towards fellows and all the great work they're doing across the nation. But great thing about the College of Fellows is that they definitely want to incorporate other voices. So every once in a while they'll pull an article from the Young Architects Forum, or they'll pull people from the Young Architects Forum to write for them in the newsletter as well. So the publication is a diverse array of things. Also, they have some scholarships and programs like that. So they have advertisements that they also want to advocate for. So there's lots of things that go into the newsletter.
No, and that's a lot of fun. I'll have to look them up because I know I keep up with Connection, even if I can't contribute all the time. I'm always not enough. But I know you mentioned early on that you got really burned out before you pivoted. And I know it sounded like you pulled back from other organizations. Do you have other tips for if anybody's burnt out and need to readjust, or anything that worked for you in particular? Everybody's burnout's a little bit different.
Yeah. So I guess my burnout came more so from a recognition that like I was doing a lot very fast in a short amount of time. But then also at that particular time, something that I loved and was a passion of mine stopped feeling like something I loved and was a passion. Not everything is peaches and roses, so it's not always going to feel great.
Yeah.
But if you start to lose the luster for me, I had to take a pause. I didn't want to lose it altogether. And so I didn't want to have a sour taste in my mouth about the architecture industry. So I wanted to take another path that still kept me adjacent and allied to it and still within it, but through a different lens. And then some of the things that I really was passionate about, design and architecture, I could do on the side. And I could still...
The professor.
Exactly, as the professor.
Building lamps.
Building lamps. Or maybe even taking up a small project for a friend or family member or acquaintance that wants to do a renovation to their home. Things like that, where it's not my day-to-day job, but it's something that still allows me to stretch my creativity and still stretch my design skills. It's a good balance for me. So I would recommend to somebody who's dealing with burnout is maybe just take a pause for a second, a mental pause. I don't mean like leave your job immediately, quit
your job, quit everything, go hide in a rock.
Yeah, unless you are in a fantastic financial situation where you can just drop everything, go for it. But I recommend taking a mental pause and just asking the tough questions of like, okay, if it's tough now, what can I do to either change that? And that may mean shifting organizations. It may mean shifting roles, or it may mean leaving the industry altogether. But taking a mental pause and talking and developing mentors is probably a good starting place for sure.
Yeah, because just because you're burnout doesn't mean you have to leave the industry. Right. A lot of people feel they have to quit their firm.
Right.
I'm like, no, you can change what you're working on in your role. Right. And I feel most firm leaders now get it. And if they're not getting it, then maybe, it's time to move on to a different firm. But yeah, touching back on the AIA, I know I tend to get a lot of questions from recent grads. What is it for them to why they should join the AIA? They've got mounds of debt. They've got the AREs they're starting to figure out, which is also costly between the actual exams and studying. And not all firms help support paying for an organization. And I know for Pittsburgh, my dues are over $1,000.
Yeah.
But again, you mentioned you get what you put into it. So what advice do you give to those recent grads?
Yeah, well, for starters, for recent grads, if you're joining the AIA and you've not been a member as a professional, of course, AIS, I'm sure that's a different boat. I believe they cover your first year. So,
if you apply within X number of days or months since graduation.
You should first get that exposure with that free membership. Jump into it and see what AIA is about. One big thing I will say is that once you get into AIA, don't just sign up and attend one event or two. Go to a diverse array of events. There's usually a different, essentially, club, so to speak. But it's a different committee for various aspects of AIA, whether you're focused on building typologies, you like education spaces, or you really want to talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion, or you really want to advocate for some particular local program you're having. For example, Baltimore had the Future Architect program, which was supporting K through 12 schools, essentially adopting a school. Like, there's so many different avenues within the AIA, both locally, regionally, and nationally. And get involved, meet as many folks as you can. And I think that might be the starting place for you seeing AIA's worth, because it's really, AIA as an organization is phenomenal. It's huge and robust, but it's really the people that make it valuable. And some of those opportunities that may come up in your life, whether it's career opportunities or just exposure and professional development, those usually come from the networks you develop. And I think AIA is essentially the premier network for architects just because of its sheer number. And I think NOMA is extremely powerful as well. But AIA is just massive. So I think you've got to just at least try it a little bit. And I say the same thing for NOMA. Like, people should absolutely join NOMA, because for me, NOMA is like, AIA is massive, but NOMA is like family. Like, it's a little bit more intimate. So the connections you build in NOMA are almost like family-like. And AI, you will get those connections too, but it's just the scale changes.
Check out the full discussion from this bite of advice here. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more mentorDINO content.